Hi, and welcome to my series on how to write your first novel using that most unlikely of writing implements, a round Oxford bus ticket. Today we are going to take bus number 2 to St Giles. You need to get off at a stop outside Tesco's. You can't miss it because I've marked it with a couple of ducks outside. And just up the road you'll find one of these. It's a memorial to some Protestant martyrs who were burned at the stake 500 years ago. There's stuff like this round every street corner in Oxford. We're off to find the ghost of Sir Richard Francis Burton, and with his help we are going to look at arguably the most useful lesson of all, namely how to write a page turner. Now you might think the secret of page turning is some sort of ineffable mystery possessed by the great novelists who wrote by instinct. And I'm sure that's true, but I think we can study their art and craft and derive a sort of method from it. A sort of clockwork of page turning, if you will. In order to help us, we will be enlisting the aid of a flatulent donkey and a carrot. But first, a few words about page turning. I imagine it's fair to say if you aspire to write a novel, you would probably like it to be a page turner. One of those books the reader just can't put down. I can tell you from personal experience that if a reader ever says to you that they couldn't put your book down, you're going to feel jolly pleased. It's true that in certain circles, such as the rarefied worlds of academia or of so-called literary fiction, page turners might be considered a touch vulgar, something for the hoi polloi. And rather than laud a book for being a page turner, they prefer stuff like this: a caustic, deeply aware exploration of contemporary agony, a bruising and vitally necessary novel. Well, you know what it means when a reviewer calls your novel bruising and necessary. It means he couldn't finish it. This is what they said about my first novel, Sheer Delight, already one of my favourite books of the year. I wish that all first novels could be written with such cadence, such panache and such abundant comic talent. One of the most inventively comic crime novels of recent years. They didn't say it was a necessary book. I mean, it wasn't really. I could have done something else. I could have been, I don't know, a deep sea diver perhaps. Anyway, I'm going to assume everyone here wants to write a page turner. So let's catch our bus. Take a short walk from St Giles to this place, Trinity College, Oxford, founded in 1555, which makes it one of the newer colleges in Oxford. Take a peek through the gates and see if you can spot the ghost of Sir Richard Francis Burton. He's one of their most celebrated alumni. He was quite a man, explorer, writer, scholar, soldier in the Crimean War, a man who spoke 29 languages. Bit of a show-off, really. He also translated The Perfumed Garden of Sensual Delight, a 15th century Arabic sex manual. Donkeys get a mention in chapter 10. But the work he is most famous for, and which is central to our discussion of the page turner, is The 1001 Nights. He was first to translate it into English. Aladdin and his lamp, Sinbad the sailor, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. You will doubtless be familiar with many of the stories. But the one for which we writers are most in his debt is the frame story of Scheherazade. I'm sure you know how it goes. The Sultan discovers that his wife has been cheating on him, so he comes up with a scheme to avoid it ever happening again. He determines to marry a virgin every day and behead her in the morning. Well, pretty foolproof plan, you might think, but there was a catch. Before long, the town had run out of virgins. So the vizier, whose job it was to provide them, offered the Sultan his own daughter, Scheherazade, to be the Sultan's bride. Now Scheherazade was a smart cookie, so each night she told the Sultan a story and broke off at dawn, just at a good bit. And desperate to know what happened next, the Sultan would postpone the beheading. And the following night she did it again, told him a story and broke off at dawn just as it got really interesting. And in this way she managed to forestall her doom for 1001 nights. What happens next? The simple unvoiced question in the reader's mind lies at the heart of page turning. There are in fact 3 ingredients in a magic formula, and they all begin with C. Curiosity, causality, conflict. Curiosity, as we've seen, is the art of raising questions. Normally there is one overarching question raised on page 1 that doesn't get answered until the end, such as who stole the family jewels, or who murdered the butler. But in addition to this main question, we raise numerous others. The trick is not to answer one until you've raised another, and thus ensnared the reader in an overlapping series of questions. A close cousin of curiosity is anticipation. Sometimes instead of making readers wonder what happens next, we tell them, and then they can't wait to see it. There is a great opening line to Ian Banks's novel The Crow Road. It begins, "It was a day my grandmother exploded." Well, as soon as you read that, you spend the rest of the novel in eager anticipation of the spectacle of grandmother exploding. In a similar vein, perhaps, maybe you are eagerly anticipating the bit about the flatulent donkey. Well, don't worry, we are going to meet him now. I want you to imagine you the reader, are sitting on the donkey. In time-honoured fashion, you hold a carrot on the end of a stick to tempt the donkey forward. This represents curiosity. Now imagine a donkey violently breaks wind. This adds an element of forward propulsion to his amiable ambling donkey gait. And this forward momentum represents causality. It's like the curiosity pulls you and the causality pushes you through the tale. But there is a slight paradox here too. In order to use causality to propel the reader through the story, we also need some sort of resistance. You need things to get in the way and resist our progress through the tale. Some people call it conflict, but generally it means things going wrong, some form of resistance to our otherwise smooth passage through the story. If the causality impels us and the curiosity draws us, the conflict inhibits us, and the combination of these three elements gives a very pleasurable sense of tension in the belly. Our task then is to encode these elements into the structure of every scene we write. But how do we do that? We can see how curiosity works. And conflict is fairly self-explanatory. But what about Ned the donkey breaking wind? How do we generate the force of causality? That doesn't seem so obvious, does it? Well, I'm going to play a bit of a Scheherazade on you here and break off just as the sun rises. I want to take a bit more time to look into the mystery of causality, so I will reserve it for the next video. In that, I'm going to look at the idea of the scene. What actually is a scene? And once we know the answer to that, I'll give you a simple formula that will enable you to generate what we might call the clockwork of page turning. Don't miss it.